Welcome back to English from A to Z, English in real life. So, have you ever been in a conversation in English and you know exactly what you want to say, but your brain just freezes? It gets stuck in that frantic word for word translation process before you can even get a single sentence out. Well, today we're going to tackle that frustrating feeling head on with a really powerful method called Think Smart, Speak Fluent. You know that feeling, right? You want to jump in, say something clever, but your mind takes this long, winding detour inside your head. And what's the result? Jumbled sentences, these awkward pauses, and the whole flow of the conversation just slips right by you. It is incredibly frustrating. And honestly, that one moment of hesitation is often the biggest wall between just knowing English words and actually sounding fluent. So, our mission today is to give you a roadmap to break free of that. First, we're going to diagnose the problem, what I like to call the mental traffic jam. Then we'll dive straight into our two-part solution. Phase 1 is Think Smart, and it's all about rewiring your brain. Phase 2, Speak Fluent, is about making all that new thinking come out of your mouth smoothly. And we'll wrap it all up with some truly inspiring stories from real learners who've been there. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so the core issue, the bottleneck we really want to get rid of is this whole internal translation thing. I get it, it's the default for so many of us, but it's just fundamentally flawed for speaking in real time. Now, this whole process might feel instantaneous, but let's look at what's actually happening under the hood. You have a thought in your native language. Then you have to search for the right English words. Then you try to piece together the correct grammar, and only then do you actually try to speak. In a fast-moving conversation, that's just way too slow. It's like a four-car pileup in your brain before a single word even gets out. And there's a real scientific reason this is so draining. Cognitive psychologists call it switch cost. See, every single time your brain has to jump between your native language, then to English vocabulary, then to English grammar, it eats up a ton of mental energy. You're trying to hold the meaning, find the word, and remember the rules, all at the same time. No wonder your brain gets overloaded. And here's what happens because of that overload. It leads to hesitation. You stumble, you feel tongue-tied. That hesitation then starts to feed your anxiety, which, of course, makes you even more nervous the next time you try to speak. It becomes this vicious cycle that can completely stall your progress. So, how in the world do we break that cycle? Well, we start with phase 1, Think Smart. I want you to think of this as upgrading your brain's operating system so it can run English directly, without needing that slow, clunky translation program running in the background. This phase is all about creating a direct link from an idea straight to English speech. And we're going to do this using a few core techniques, like forcing your brain to operate only in English, linking words to images instead of translations, learning words in groups that make sense together, and even practicing conversations in your head. So, the golden rule for this phase is really simple. No cheating. When you're practicing and you hit a word you don't know, you have to find a way to describe it using the English you already have. This is so important because it forces your brain to build connections within English instead of constantly taking that detour back to your native language. Here's another huge shift for you. Stop memorizing single words from a list. It's just not efficient. Instead, you need to start learning chunks. These are groups of words that naturally go together. Things like take a break, make a decision, or on the other hand. When you learn take a break as one single unit, your brain retrieves all three words with the same effort it takes to find one. It's a massive speed boost. So how do we actually put this into practice? Here are some simple steps to start building your internal English network. Start using an English-to-English dictionary. When the definition is in English, you're forced to understand the word inside the language itself. Change your device settings to English. It's constant, low-level immersion. And just be honest with yourself. Start tracking how often you translate and actively work to cut that down. Okay, so we've done the internal work. We're training our brains to think directly in English. But now, how do we get that smooth internal process to actually come out of our mouths? This is phase two, making that smart thinking audible, natural, and really confident. And it all starts with this number right here. This represents one of the most powerful mindset shifts you can possibly make. It's called the 70% rule. And it's all about letting go of the biggest barrier to speaking, which, for most of us, is perfectionism. The rule is simple. If you feel about 70% confident that you can get your meaning across, even if the grammar isn't perfect, just say it. Your goal is communication, not perfection. Waiting until you're 100% sure often just means you say nothing at all. Trust me, it's far better to keep the conversation moving than to freeze up trying to construct the perfect sentence. A small change here can make a huge difference. Mastering transition words is like the glue that holds all your ideas together. The before example is grammatically correct, sure, but it feels a little choppy, right? But the after example uses connectors like primarily because and furthermore to create a smooth, logical flow. It just sounds so much more coherent and, frankly, sophisticated. To really put this into practice, you have to be active. I mean, record yourself speaking and listen back, but don't just hunt for grammar mistakes. Listen for your rhythm, your flow, where you hesitate. Practice shadowing, that's mimicking a native speaker, to really internalize the natural cadence of English. And finally, put yourself in situations, like a debate club, where you have to speak. Now, theory is great and all, but stories are what bring it to life. So let's look at some real people who used these exact principles to completely transform their fluency, proving that this is a tangible, achievable goal for you too. Take Robbie Cuckers. He arrived in Ireland feeling totally isolated, just unable to keep up with fast conversations. And the traditional grammar books, they weren't helping him speak. His big aha moment came when he started intensely shadowing TV shows, mimicking their rhythm and phrases over and over again. The payoff was huge. He vividly remembers his first work call where the English just flowed without that painful translation lag. Or think about Maria from Lisbon. She had this problem that I think so many of us can relate to. She was great when she was practicing alone, talking to her reflection in the mirror, but the moment she was in a real conversation, that shyness just took over and she would freeze. So, how did she bridge that gap? Well, her secret was massive, joyful immersion. She reportedly read over 1,000 books in English. She had podcasts on constantly. She literally saturated her life with the language until thinking in English wasn't a chore anymore. It was just how her brain worked. And the ultimate proof? She stood at a podium during her master's degree seminar and delivered a complex presentation, clearly and confidently. Just amazing. And the stories just keep going. Diana, who was paralyzed by fear, used output practice to absolutely nail her job interviews. Charmin worked specifically on her rhythm to stop rushing her words in important meetings, and Paco, who started in his 60s, proved that with the right mindset, focusing on thinking in the language, age is just a number. So, the key takeaway from all these stories is that the path is clear. This whole system of rewiring your brain really truly works. The secret isn't some magic trick. It's all about starting small with just one new habit, like a 10-minute think aloud session on your walk tomorrow, and then being incredibly consistent. And I'll leave you with this to think about. If fluency is really about thinking directly in a language and not just translating, what does that mean for how we look at grammar? What assumptions about needing to be perfect might you have to let go of to truly free your mind and let your voice be heard?